everybody and welcome to the Flute Practice. Today we are going to be looking at how to get rid of that airy, fluffy, unfocused tone and how to find a really nice, clear, focused, crisp sound. So let's go check it out. The first really important thing to look at is that your aperture or your hole formed by your lips is really landing in the center of the tone hole of the flute. So it means if you're off to the side like this, but your aperture really is in the middle, you're going to get a fluffy sound. Pretty self-evident. If you have got an embouchure that's forming off to the side somewhere, I recommend not to try and train it into the middle. I recommend that you just move the flute accordingly so that wherever your embouchure is naturally forming, you just move your flute and make sure that the two are lining up nicely. This is really, really important, and I would really check in that you really are doing it correctly. You can sometimes see kind of like a perspiration stream in the front of the flute there, which shows you whether your air stream is really going straight center into the flute or if it is going off to one or the other side. Sometimes if there is like a small deviation, it's not so much about moving and repositioning the flute, but really thinking about which direction you're blowing the air, that you're really, if you're off to this side, you're thinking of blowing the air more down to this side, and if you're, other way around, blowing, if the line is going off to this side, think about blowing more down that way. This is something you can have fun with, you can experiment with, and you can see what happens. What I love about this is that the flute so instantly responds to it, and you straight away hear that sort of popping, crisp, clear, focused sound, which tells you, ha, found the spot. A really common problem that people have when they're trying to find a focused sound is that their aperture, or their hole formed here, is just too big. It means that too much air is escaping and it's not focusing enough and really, like a dart, really going down into the center of that sound. There are two reasons that this can be happening. I think the one reason is just that you've gotten used to playing with a bigger aperture than you need to. The other reason might be that you are too loose here. So this kind of brings me into my next point, which is to make sure that your embouchure here is not too loose. Sometimes people tend to kind of thinking more of a. Now, for those of you that have watched my other videos, we've spoken a lot about having too tight embouchures, and I know I use this technique to counteract that tightness, but on its own it's pretty useless because you're going to get a very fluffy, airy kind of a sound instead of a. So what you'll see there, maybe you won't, but certainly what I feel is that instead of having a kind of an embouchure where it's loose here and quite open here, I'm thinking a little bit more here and a little bit, I don't want to use the word tension because that can easily take us there, but it's just a little bit more, I guess tension is the right word, but just a bit more holding here to just let that air escape rather than thinking too open. My favorite exercise still for training this feeling of having quite a small embouchure here is to do that per exercise that I've spoken about in so many of my videos. It's really great if you do the and really just let the air push the lips open. So you're starting with the lips closed, you're doing a nice and then you're just letting that, like a little explosion, just open those lips. Try do that on the actual flute. So if you take the flute, it's a technique that I actually use for my beginners, and I think that sometimes we kind of have to go back to these beginner steps. So I'm going to send you to my beginner video, not because I think you're a beginner, but if you're looking to develop your sound, sometimes it's a really great technique to just really go back to the basics. The last really important thing to consider when you are trying to focus your sound is support and breathing. I cannot tell you how many students I have had that we've been working on their sound, we've been working on focusing their sound, and it's only really come right when we have actually looked at their support and breathing. We spend weeks and weeks fiddling and doing all sorts of things, which is really important because you need to sort this out. But if your support and breathing is not there, you are going to struggle. I've done a whole bunch of videos on this. I'm going to just spend a second just kind of once again clarifying my idea of what support is. I know this is like a serious rabbit hole that most of us kind of crawl down. But you do kind of need to figure and discover what works for you, and what is your idea of support, and is it working? Is it functioning? My idea of support is really that it is a natural result of breathing in properly. So when we breathe in and we really let our stomachs go out nicely and open up our whole abdomen area, all we really now need to do is on the out breath, instead of just collapsing all of that again and letting it go, we just have to engage those muscles in our abdomen very gently, just to really hold it there, support it in place, and let it release slowly, bit by bit. I don't believe it is the squeezing muscles. I don't believe we have to squeeze in or push in or do any of those things. I think that I personally have not played like this, and I feel that I'm very capable and able to support high notes, low notes, soft notes, loud notes, do whatever it is I need to do. So I can't force any of you, but I'm going to encourage you to really try this out and explore your support. Really figure out, are you just somehow supporting, or do you actually know what you are doing? Perhaps you're doing something different that does work for you, and that is totally fine. But this is a very important aspect of sound, and unless you really engage and fix this, you're going to struggle. I think the support should always be a full-bodied, full-body experience. So if it isn't, if you feel like you're kind of stuck somewhere up here and you're not really considering what the rest of your body is doing, you really might want to consider it. I always say, the flute is just an extension of the instrument, which is us as well. We are part of this instrument, and the flute will never play itself. So you need to kind of make sure that your body is doing everything it can to make the best possible sound. All right, everybody, I would like to offer those of you who are struggling with your sound, you can go check out one of my Patreon rewards is a 15-minute consultation. Basically, this time can be used for anything you like if you would like to sign up for it, but we can work on finding your sound specifically. This is something that I really love doing. I love to help flute players find their own unique sound and their own unique voice. I believe that this is the power of the musician, that each of us have our own voices that we can share with the world. One of my favorite quotes that my sister keeps telling me is that if only the most talented birds in the woods would sing, the woods would be a very quiet place. And I think this is so true. If you are new to this channel and you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. Until then, everybody, happy practicing and see you next time.